So, Mack Hansen, we had wondered what the ban would be. I was arguing yesterday on our rugby show with Rory. He shouldn't get any ban whatsoever. I was wrong. 6 game ban, although reduced to 3, but 6 game ban following the comments he made over Christmas. He's going to miss the Lyon game, the Cardiff game, and URC game against Glasgow. Connacht have received a suspended €10,000 fine. It would not be rugby unless player being punished was sent on some kind of course. So I don't know if they have this in the same building as tackle school, but he's going to a course related to match officiating. And then the learnings are to be disseminated to his teammates at Connacht. So I don't know, does he make a presentation? We can only hope so. He must also make an apology to the referee, Chris Busby, who's also in the news, by the way. More of that in a moment. And then he released a statement, Mack. Just before we hear his statement, here as a reminder, because it was busy and it was Christmas and there was lots going on, here is Mack Hansen speaking after Connacht were beaten 20 points to 8 at the Aviva Stadium, just to give you a flavour of where he was.
Can I say something real quick, Pete, about the situation?
Cool.
Because, I feel like we get this every week. We never get any calls, ever. I've been feeling this for years now. You can't possibly tell me yourself sitting there, checking the Gus McCarthy one. How much? How much did they check that? 10, 11 times? Bundy gets a direct hit to the head. It's quite obvious. No call. Doesn't care. It's we get that every time. So I don't know if you can hear the frustration in my voice, because it's starting to get to the point where it's honestly bullshit, and it's starting to get really frustrating for us, because people will say we're an inconsistent team, but Jesus Christ, when you're getting some of the calls we're getting, of course you're going to be. And as I said, I'm not making excuses by any means, but when you just get it week after week, I feel it's got to be spoken about now, because it's just getting to a point where it's starting to really piss us off, because we just felt like we're getting played out of games, and we never ever get any calls. Didn't even look back at it. And then Josh goes off with a direct hit to the head again. And I was talking to Touchy, he goes, oh, well, when you're tackling, you lead with the head. What? That doesn't make any sense. That's a penalty, regardless. So he's actually said he's hit him in the head with his head, but because he was bent over, it was fine or something like that. When he smacked him in the back of the head with his head. And no call at all, not even a look back. We get that every time. So he'd be in a tough situation if he says it, but I feel like we need to, just needs to be said. It's really fucking starting to get to us as a team.
And then it was Pete. Have you anything to say? No. It's fine. So Mack has released a statement. You can imagine a gun to his head if you want. There's no need. However, after the Leinster game, on this occasion, I let my emotions get the better of me. Upon reflection, my comments to the media were ill-advised, fell far short of the standards I expect of myself, what the sport expects of its players. I want to offer an apology to the match officials for any distress my comments may have caused. Our games are built on mutual respect, and I didn't show that after the game. I also want to apologise to the URC. I fully accept the findings of the panel. I love Connacht. I love rugby. Will, that's a fairly serious slapdown. 6 games, albeit reduced to 3.
Yeah, and ultimately 2, because one of the games is a game that he won't be playing in, because he'll be in Portugal with the Ireland camp, so that's kind of included in 3 matches. So ultimately it's a 2-match ban. I don't think you mentioned there that the entire Connacht team are now subject to media training by the Connacht. Have to be get kind of a media kind of tutorial in how to answer questions. I'm just picturing Rudd's face on a board with a big X over it. This.
Why are they trying to ruin the sport and make it as dull as possible?
No, but it's funny you say that, because chatting to Rudd and seeing some of the commentary, rugby's taking itself so seriously. I don't think there's any sport now where a guy could go into a press conference after a game, speak like that about the referees, and there is, I think, another comment about feels like we're playing 16 men, and not expect to get a sanction. There's an idea that rugby is being so super serious on this specific instance, and I don't really agree with it, nor do I agree with the conflation of personality and talking about the referees like that. There's plenty of ways to show your personality and be colourful, albeit that was a very colourful and personality-filled rant, or not rant, whatever you want to call it. But I do think the things he said are things that will rightly be picked up on. Now, you asked me for other examples before we came on air, like Jack Noel, La Rochelle winger, England international, tweeted, I think in 2023, that a call in one of the Premiership extra games was one of the worst decisions he'd ever seen. He got a 10,000 sterling fine personally and had to go to a referee course like Mack Hansen, but didn't get a ban. So, that's, a somewhat apples to apples comparison. It wasn't an audio 3-minute kind of thing, but it was a direct criticism of the officials. So, we've seen kind of inconsistencies in kind of how dangerous clear-outs are being dealt with. We've seen, maybe inconsistencies in how this is being dealt with. But in this instance, I think a 2-match ban, a referee course, I don't know. The media training thing, I think, is extremely excessive. And that's where I would be like, that's rugby taking itself maybe a bit too seriously. But I think a 2-match ban is fair for what he said. Like, I don't think that sort of, discussions on officials should be allowed. You mentioned Chris Busby. I think you might want maybe tell the listeners what the subsequent Chris Busby news has been today.
Yeah, and the timing of this may well not be good for Mack Hansen because it's on the same day as his ban, and people about to maybe jump in and defend him are now going, oh, okay, I'll wait this one out and just see the particulars of the Chris Busby situation, because the referee that day is set to confirm his shock retirement from the sport, according to the 42. And he's not of an age where he should be retiring. He's viewed as one of the top prospects in international refereeing. The 42 understands he will step away from the professional game in the near future. Now, it does say in the piece, Busby's decision, the Hansen thing has not helped, but it is also thought to have been influenced by the levels of toxic online abuse. And I would say, to be fair to Hansen, that is the more consistent drawback of being a referee. The Hansen thing will happen once or twice in a career tops, whereas I'd say online abuse is fairly regular. He's refereeing Bath Claremont on Sunday. It's unclear how much longer he'll be active at the professional level. I mean, I suppose the insinuation is that Hansen, well, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah.
The straw that broke the camel's back, perhaps.
But one thing on Chris Busby in particular, I heard a lot of people say, oh, he wasn't particularly talking about Chris Busby. It was this broader thing. But we heard there, lots of specific incidents in that game. And yes, the TMO is responsible to maybe come in on some of them. But likewise, Chris Busby is responsible to go to the TMO when he sees something out of the corner of his eye and didn't do it. So it was personal as well as general, I thought. And that's why I felt that a ban would be forthcoming rather than a slap on the wrist. So while it probably isn't directly linked to it, I don't think this one incident would prompt him to retire. I don't think it's fair to exonerate Mack Hansen and say it wasn't directed at Chris Busby. Ultimately, he's the head of that team of officials. Were those decisions wrong or right? That's not the point, really. Like, it's the fact that he was kind of so kind of baldly and blatantly calling out Chris Busby, his team, and other officials in the league. And I am very surprised he retired. Like, I went to the bathroom, came back, and Ronan, our colleague, was like, Chris Busby's retired. And I thought he was joking at first because it happened right on the heels of this announcement. But yeah, again, the people who were maybe defending Mack Hansen as much as they were after this, I don't know, does it maybe give them more pause to the impact it can have? Because it definitely would have launched another tirade of online kind of abuse, I would imagine, after that.
I think it does. It softened Mike off a touch. I was like, okay.
Well, I was actually surprised how your kind of stance yesterday, I must say.
I was sort of surprised myself. Sometimes you start talking in a live environment, and afterwards I was like, God, I sounded more forceful about that than I might feel. It's like a concoction of just sometimes rugby, like Jack Crowley doesn't play against Sam Prendergast. Player says something interesting. Oh God, like the media, this is an outrage. It's like, I like well, I'm wary of saying this. I can respect the values that it espouses endlessly. But sometimes it does take itself a little bit seriously. And I just thought Hansen was very emotional. Could you slap on the wrist? I would have been more saying, slap on the wrist. Mac, you can't do that again. Well, you get one free. But if he was perpetually talking about referees like that, I would say, okay, that's not acceptable.
It's a no-go in every sport, really, though. I
it
think.
is increasingly. I give you that.
When they conflated it, I actually had not heard the full audio. I read the reports at the time, and I kind of said, well, all he's saying is what, the weaker counties don't get the big calls. Yeah. But actually, when he said that and then went on to specify the particular incidents, it incriminates you more, because what you're saying is, this is symptomatic of that way of thinking. So I think on the one hand, if you say a referee made a mistake, okay, that's or made numerous mistakes, or you're critical of their performance, that's one thing.
Yes.
If you say that there's a general trend, that's another thing. But when you put them both together, it actually makes it a bigger thing.
I can see how the URC said, like, at best he's saying we're an incompetent league, at worst he's saying there's borderline corruption here.
Yeah, like I remember, not to conflate everything to GAA, but after the 2013 All-Ireland final, Jim Gavin said that Dublin were playing against 16 men. That's why they committed 40 fouls in the last 5 minutes.
And what happened?
That was John McQuillan, nothing. In 2014, Brian Cody said that Barry Kelly that the decision to award that free against Brian Hogan that Bubbles O'Dwyer narrowly missed to win the game, he said it was criminal. And the CHC, I think, investigated and decided he had no charges. So it is a very
using criminal.
That's 10 years ago. I
criminal
feel like now that would probably be.
yeah.
There's
But I have to say,
been a tightening.
I don't
Criminal.
I don't know about rugby's disciplinary bodies or whatever, but like we're talking about overextending yourself. The idea that a disciplinary body can hand out either an edict or a directive or a punishment, if you want to see it that way, that an entire squad submits to media training so that they say presumably less interesting things in the media.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a great development.
As a journalist,
Well,
you don't think it's a great development,
Like
or a fan.
for an organising body to be literally saying to players, listen, you suppress
Yeah.
what you feel after a match.
They don't even need media training. They are all media training.
Yeah.
Mack Hansen is literally the only guy who probably would need to be told, look, don't go in and say.
I can picture them all sitting all in the classroom looking at Mack Hansen going, oh, thanks a million, Mack, now. We have to listen to this guy.
You know what, no, I'd like to reiterate yesterday. I think if I was in the panel, I said, can we, like, he's emotional, he's a player, he's doing media duties, he was in a press conference, it comes out. Would an apology suffice here? Does he have to miss games?
He does.
I think apology would suffice. And if, Mac, we ever see you in here again talking about referees like that, we will throw the book at you. That's what I'd be voting for in that panel. I'd be outvoted, I accept that, but that's where I am on it.
I'm genuinely surprised. I just think refereeing is just it's a no-go area. Like, not that I necessarily think Mac shouldn't have been allowed to say that. Obviously, if I was making the rules, I enjoyed that. I don't think it was overly, critical. But the world we live in, I think a ban, a 2-match ban, is a fair outcome. And I really don't like the notion that, like, someone in the media giving out about Mack Hansen now, like, what do you expect the guys to say now? Like, they're different issues for me. Like, him coming out and speaking about officials like that does not preclude another player from being like, showing insights into their personality. Whereas some people seem to think it does. That, like, Mack Hansen being censured on this specific issue means he'll never say anything interesting again. For me, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's the way to look at it personally. But
I think that's true too. I agree with that.